when Tom threw out the first ball at the All-Star game in Citi, Tom was thrilled that David caught the pitch. So it's only fitting that that happened. When David Wright started his own foundation, was 24 years old. Really, who does that? The first year of the foundation, he helped redecorate a room for cancer kids at a Ronald McDonald House. In the last couple of decades, he's raised over $1 million for a local hospital in his hometown of Norfolk. David, the name is so long, I can't remember it. All I know is the largest children's hospital in the state of Virginia. Let's go with that. Whether there was a calamity in New York or the country, David was always there for us. Katrina, Sandy, a fireman was killed, a policeman was killed. To visit a cancer kid at a hospital, the only caveat was no publicity allowed. It was just between David and the people involved. Um, the other thing too about David, the man has no ego. Just to give you two quick examples in the summer of 2015, when he was away from the team most of the year because of spinal stenosis, he rejoined in Philadelphia. He was a little bit worried about how the team would receive him. The team was playing well, so he came up with the idea of we're coming back on a road trip. He greeted us at a hotel in Philly in full uniform, handing out warm chocolate chip cookies in full contact. I probably ate four of them. And lastly, this probably typifies David more than anything. His full-time job now is coaching his three kids at soccer and baseball games. One particular, we're up to the plate, exchanging lineup cards. The woman on the other side says, "What is it, my fourth year of coaching? We have 14 All-Stars. I'm doing this. Do you have any involvement in baseball at all?" David's response was, "I dabble a little bit." Guys and ladies, that typifies what David writes about. I'll turn it back to Mr. Wilson.
And with that, we'll turn it over for David's opening remarks.
Thank you, guys. Jay and Ethan, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Like, there's no way that I develop into would like to think the person that I am without both of your guidance. So I appreciate the kind words. A lot of it is probably not deserved, but thank you very much for the introduction. But more importantly, thank you for your friendship and thank you for the guidance along the way. With that being said, I married a Southern California girl. So I'd just like to take a moment to send some thoughts and prayers out to the victims of these wildfires. It hits kind of close to home. Some friends, a lot of acquaintances out of their house and now lost home. So thoughts and prayers go out to everybody affected by these wildfires out here in Southern California.
And with that, we'll open it up for questions and answers. If you have a question, please use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. With that, we'll start with Bill Ladson.
Congratulations, David. David, has it hit you yet that your number's going to be retired? And have you talked to any of the retired players like a Keith Hernandez or Darryl Strawberry?
So one of the first text messages I got when the Mets made the official announcement was from Keith Hernandez, and really long, really genuine text that it meant so much that I immediately actually called Jay Horwitz and I said, "Hey, I want to make sure that this is real." It meant a lot to me for a guy of his stature, what he's done for this organization and the game to reach out and share those kind of words. So I don't think it's hit me. I don't think it's ever going to hit me. I truly feel like it's a bit undeserved given the skill and accomplishments of some of the numbers that I'll be amongst up there. I joke that I think there should be a special section maybe for my number because it's probably not deserving being amongst the really, really good players in the organization. So I'm incredibly grateful for the honor. I don't take it lightly. I'm humbled. And for the organization, the fan base, the city, ownership, Steve and Alex Cohen to view me in this light, it's something that obviously means a ton to me.
Thank you.
The next question is from Bruce Beck.
David, congratulations.
Hey, Bruce.
Um, what did it mean to you to represent this franchise as the captain and as a ball player for a number of years?
Well, the captaincy, is the biggest honor that um, I'll ever receive, on a baseball field. To be viewed in the light, and that's something that you don't, you can't proclaim yourself the captain. It's got to be bestowed on you upon other people. And I remember the day during spring training when ownership and the front office and the coaches called me into the office and said, "Hey, this is what we're thinking." I immediately thought that, this isn't the way that this should work. There should be somebody that the players trust. And I don't care if it's a guy that has 20 years experience or a guy that's a rookie, that they should go talk to these guys and make sure that this is the way that they view me, because that was the most important thing, is that, I didn't want to be this self-proclaimed leader, captain of this team. I wanted to be viewed in that light by other people. And um, hopefully that was the case. But I mean, I think going back, and I hate to be long-winded about this, but I grew up in right outside Norfolk, Virginia. Our AAA team was in Norfolk forever. My father was a police officer in Norfolk, Virginia, and a lot of his friends were off-duty police that would do security for the Norfolk Tides. So we'd go to the games with my three younger brothers and my dad, and he would know some of the off-duty police that are helping out with security. So I would get autographs or foul balls or pictures taken. And I found it was the biggest thrill for me to then turn on the TV a week later and see the guys that I took a picture with or got an autograph now playing for the New York Mets. So, just incredibly crazy that I'm drafted by my favorite team. Our AAA team's in my hometown. I'm developed by some of my favorite players, my dad's favorite players growing up, whether it's Hojo or Gary Carter or, Tim Tuffle, Straw's around, Doc's around, Keith's around. I mean, it's crazy the coincidence. And then to spend my entire career with the Mets, I think that's what makes this relationship so special between not just me and the team, but me and the city and the fan base, is that it's a genuine connection. And I think that organically, we root for one another. I'd have a tough game, and the next day walking to get coffee or a sandwich, I'd have 1,000 hitting coaches telling me what I'm doing wrong, or a pat on the back saying, "Hey, you're going to get him tonight." So I think that's what made this relationship so special, is that, and I said it in the release to Ethan, that every night it felt like I had 40,000 friends and family that were genuinely rooting for me to succeed in the stands.
Hey, David, just one other thing. Juan Soto signing, what it means to this franchise, in your opinion, as a guy who was the core of this franchise for so long. What does it mean not only from a baseball standpoint, but from an image point that the Mets got this player that was the most desirable person during free agency?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge. And, it doesn't seem like, it seems like the will to win within the organization is incredible. I mean, it's a win at all costs, do whatever you can to win type mentality. And that's something that I love. It's something that the city loves. It's something that the fan base certainly loves. And, I think that it's not just, the goal is not just set now to win one championship. It's, hey, let's go on a run and win multiple championships. And that's a mindset and an attitude that I think any player or any fan or anybody can get behind. So, I think that it certainly shows that the level of commitment to win, but on a kind of a more important note, I think that it's not just for show. Like it's ownership and this front office, they want to put a winning product out there on the field, and a product that's going to entertain and win a lot of baseball games. So I couldn't be more excited for 2025.
Next question is from Abby Mistrako.
Hey, David, I just want to know what your relationship was like with Tom Seaver. What do you remember about when you first met him, and the time that you were actually able to have with him?
I love Tom. And when Jay says that we had a lot of conversations uh, about, the history and Tom's performances in a Mets uniform and baseball in general, it was a lot more of me listening to Tom tell me about his performances and his career in a Mets uniform. Um, and that's the type of, and I could give him, you know, a little crap about it, and we'd go back and forth. And I had an unbelievable relationship. And my biggest regret, one of my biggest regrets to this day, is every year he invited me to his vineyard up in Northern California to, he told me to bring my boots because he was going to put me to work. But as a reward, he said that we'd drink some wine together and have dinner. And I never took him up on that offer. And to this day, I wish I would have taken him up on that offer, because every time he was around, he'd pull me aside no matter what was happening, like in the middle of stretch, before a game, didn't matter. Like, I'd be talking to the media and he'd say, "Come here, kid." And we'd go and we'd sit down and we'd have a conversation about a little bit about baseball, but a lot about away from the field. What are you doing to, you know, counterbalance the good games and the bad games? Like, what are you doing to take your mind away from it after you leave the field? And it was so cool to sit down with him and have those conversations. And I truly mean that it was so instrumental in my development, having a guy that was one, not just for the Mets, but one of the best to ever put the uniform on, to kind of take me under his wing and try to show me the ropes a little bit.
Growing up sort of a Mets fan, you were aware of his influence on the fans and his career. What do you remember about the first time you met him or were around him? Were you a little bit starstruck maybe?
Well, I'm not quite that old. I'm getting there. I feel that old, but I obviously know about Tom just through the lore and the storytelling, and going back and looking at it, again, one of the best to ever do it. But I remember the first time I'm nervous. It's like anything else. Like, I remember the first time I met, Mike Piazza. I remember the first time I met, Tom Seaver. It's you're meeting larger than life people, coming from a baseball background, and trying to know as much as history as I possibly could. When you shake the hands of the game's giants, you can't help but to feel a little overwhelmed and a little, obviously excited but nervous, because these are the monsters and the giants of this game. And just to be able to have a small conversation with these guys goes a long way for at least for me as a young player.
Next question is from Laura Albanese.
Hey David, I just with the benefit of hindsight and time, what are you most proud of about your on the field accomplishments, and has that perspective changed at all since your retirement?
That's a great question. I mean, I would say that the thing that I'm most proud of, aside from getting a chance to start to finish, start my career and end my career with the Mets, I think would just be that the blue collar mentality that my mom and my dad instilled in me at such a young age. Father was a police officer, as I mentioned. My mother drove our school bus as an elementary school and became a teacher's assistant at the elementary school. So I felt like that blue collar, bring your lunch pail to work mentality stuck with me my entire career. And I knew that I wasn't the most talented, most gifted player on the field, but I always felt like I was the most prepared. And when I, crouched down and put my head between my legs before a game, and kind of told myself that, hey, you're ready for this, you're prepared. I truly meant it, because that was instilled in me at a young age. But I think the thing I'm most proud about is, of course, I think every player, including myself, has regrets. What if this were to happen? What if that didn't happen? I can honestly look at you and say that I felt like I got the most out of my 6 foot, 200 pound, very little athleticism body. I reached my ceiling, and that's something that I don't think a lot of players can say, is that, I put my head on my pillow at night and say, I left it all out there. I gave it everything I had. I worked as hard as I could, and there's not really anything I could have done differently on that side.
In terms of your parents, how pivotal were they in supporting you, especially after you got diagnosed with spinal stenosis?
Yeah, I mean, my parents, by that time, I was married. So my wife, I had my first daughter right after my first surgery, my neck surgery. So it kind of put everything in perspective for me. But yeah, I mean, that's, those are the people that I lean on. going through it, and that type of adversity is different than real life adversity. Like, so a lot of times baseball players talk about adversity, and it's not real life adversity. But from a baseball player, like, that type of adversity, yeah, those are the types of people that, that I lean on and that I take advice from, and that I genuinely listen when they talk. So yeah, I mean, those are the people that kind of got me through those tough times, but those are also the people that got me to that point and got me up on that pedestal, and that, sacrificed a lot for me as a kid. So my brothers and I could play sports and take me to these different travel tournaments, and, gave up things that they were interested in doing so that my brothers and I could play baseball and basketball and football and all the other sports that we wanted to play. So yeah, I'll forever be grateful. And, certainly the sacrifice is real now with kids of my own. I understand that, the sacrifice that my parents made for me.
Next question is from Ron Blum.
Hi, David. Thanks for doing this today.
Thanks for having me.
Has the adjustment to a non-playing life been relatively easy or difficult, and how so?
I think that answer is twofold. I think the first thing, it's been easy because I physically just couldn't do it anymore. It'd been different if I, felt like there was something left in the tank that I had to offer, and I think I was completely out of fuel. Physically I just couldn't do it anymore. But there's a lot of things that I certainly miss about the game, and it's not just the camaraderie that everybody says. It's preparing. It's grabbing 25 guys and pulling that rope in the same direction and trying to accomplish the same goal. It's the mindset of being in, you're coming in the clubhouse after a tough loss, and trying to motivate and spark the team for the next day. It's coming back from a great win and hearing the music blast and high-fiving and celebrating it. There's a lot of things that I miss. But the transition with my kids has made it a lot easier, because now, 99% of my time is devoted to them. I told each kid I would coach one of their sports teams. They play all sorts of different sports. My oldest plays soccer, so I coach her soccer team. We lost a heartbreaker in the semis this last fall, in extra time in 8-year-old soccer. My middle plays a lot of sports, but I coach her softball team, and then my youngest just started playing baseball, so I coach his baseball team. So that keeps me plenty of busy, and the Mets have been gracious enough to have me back here and there. I'll be back for spring training for a couple days. I do, one of my favorite events of the year is the Battle of the Badges game, where the NYPD takes on the FDNY in a charity baseball game. So that's the kind of stuff that it keeps me involved at an arm's length, that I love coming back to do, but it's certainly made the transition easier.
How old are each of the kids now?
8, 6, 4.
Thank you.
No problem.
Next question is from Dan Martin.
Hey, David. I know you mentioned the LA fires. You were living there for a while. You guys not near there anymore?
No, we're here. We're here. It's obviously we're not in the danger zone, at least as of right now, but we're close enough where we can see the blaze. So it's it hits a little closer to home when you can walk outside and look up at the Palisades or Malibu, and actually see the blaze happening. So yeah, we're still out here, but as of now, thank God we're kind of out of harm's way.
Okay. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Also, you mentioned the Soto signing earlier, but as a guy who spent his whole career with the Mets, Pete Alonso is still a free agent. What do you think of the process that he's going through? What advice maybe would you give him as he waits for this to come to a conclusion? And how important do you think it is to him to kind of follow in your footsteps and stay with the Mets?
I can't answer the last part about what kind of he's thinking. I know that he obviously, it's a different feeling when you're drafted, developed, and playing for the team that gave you your first opportunity. There's a little more, maybe a lot more pride when you put that jersey on every night. And I hope he remembers that and doesn't lose sight of that. With that being said, I've never, ever faulted a player for maximizing his earning potential and going to try to, make a great living for him and his family. I mean, I can't fault him for that, but at the same time, I remember what hit home big time for me was we were in Atlanta towards the end of Chipper's tenure, and seeing like Chipper's emotion and his words, having spent his entire career in Atlanta, it certainly hit home for me. And obviously playing across town from Derek, seeing how much that meant to him. I certainly learned a lot from them, and learned a lot from afar, just kind of following them, and kind of what they would say, and how they would act, and how much it meant to them to put the same uniform on their entire career. So, I think that should certainly be a consideration when, hopefully is a consideration to Pete when he's looking for his next team, or coming back to New York.
Next question is from Andrew Trepnick.
Hey, David, congratulations. You talked a little bit about the honor of kind of being the captain. I'm wondering kind of how you approached that day-to-day responsibility of being the captain, just in spite of being kind of so humble, being that guy that kind of louds his teammates and stuff of that nature. And if that next guy is in the room, maybe what advice would you give to a future Mets captain?
Well, it's funny because I got a text from Al Leiter this morning, and it just brought back some memories of when I got caught up. I got caught up on a incredibly veteran team, whether it was Al or Johnny Franco or Piazza or Cliff Floyd, Joe McEwing, Mike Cameron. So I got the opportunity to learn from them and kind of apply that, not just to my game on the field, but the things I liked about their leadership skills. And I've never been the most loud or yelling and screaming type guy. So I wasn't going to change that just because I was named captain. I wanted to do the things that got me to that point. And, I remember somebody telling me one time, giving me some advice that, when you do speak, you want guys to listen, and it not to be just in one ear out the other. It's like the typical, David's going, having another team meeting. I wonder what kind of nonsense he's going to say today. So I tried to keep the rah-rah kind of yelling and screaming or team meeting stuff to a minimum. But when we did have them, I wanted the players and my teammates to feel like it was an important thing, and that they were just as much involved as I was. It wasn't me standing up and yelling and screaming and fist pumping. It was, I wanted it to be a conversation. So, and each player is different. Like I tried to go up to each player every day and just have a small conversation with them, whether it was about their kids or their girlfriend, or how their apartment in New York was, or what they have they found any new good restaurants. And so I tried to find each guy every day and go pat him on the back and just have a couple-minute conversation, just to know what makes them tick or how I can lead them better. So I think that was important for me, is each year starting in spring training, learning the guys and kind of learning what motivates them, what doesn't motivate them, and just a little background so that when you're playing alongside them, what's meaningful to them and what's not.
Next question is from Joe Masseri.
Hey, David, congratulations again. I think it's interesting because you kind of got to know when your last game was going to be. You had your daughter throw out that first pitch to you. Kind of two parts here. First thing is, what for you is it going to be like to share this experience with your kids, who at least your older kids seem like will probably remember this and get to see you out there on the field?
Oh, all the kids are going to remember this. They've been talking about it since I got the call from Steve and Alex Cohen. So they're really, really, really excited. My oldest, who threw out the first pitch before my last game, thinks that she's like some sort of pseudo celebrity because she did get to throw out the first pitch. So my other kids are certainly jealous. So maybe we can somehow work that in this go around, but they're very excited. And the coolest thing for me is we tend to make it out to New York once or twice a summer. We try to catch a game while we're out there. And then coming out here, if the Mets come to Dodger Stadium or come out to Anaheim, we'll try to take the kids to one of those games. And it's really funny, and it's like I enjoy the look in their eyes when they see Francisco Lindor or Brandon Nimmo come over and say hello in full uniform, and they look at me and they're like, "Daddy, you used to do that?" And it's like, yeah, believe it or not, I used to do that. and see the look on their eyes. So it's really fulfilling for me to be able to share this with, obviously my family, in particular my kids, so that they can kind of see at one point in time your dad wasn't the dorky, goofy dad, and he was actually like not semi cool, but semi, I guess, yeah, I call it semi cool.
And a similar vein there, just kind of like putting some perspective on that. Is there anything that the game of baseball taught you about being a father, or being a father taught you about the game of baseball, and now that you have that perspective?
I think something I'm still working on is patience. That's my New Year's resolution. Is I'm very impatient when I played, and I'm very impatient a lot of times with my kids. So I think that that's something I'm still working on. That I wish I had more patience, whether it's uh, you know with teammates at times, up at the plate. I think patience can go a long way in the game, and certainly with my kids, I wish I had a little bit more of it. So I'm still working on that.
Next question is from Jen Williams.
David, first of all, congratulations. Your number is going to be the 10th number retired by the Mets and the 6th by the Cohen family since Steve Cohen took over ahead of the 21 season. And you addressed what the commitment to winning with the signing of Soto. What do all these elements kind of say about this next era under Cohen?
Well, it should be a fun ride. The first thing that comes to mind for me is that when you have a front office as good as they've been thus far, and ownership that's willing to certainly go the extra mile to put a winning product out there. Those are the types of destinations. That's how the Mets become a destination. Is when you do these types of things and prove year in, year out that you're gonna win. For me, I couldn't ask for anything more than knowing each year coming into spring training that you're going to be one of the favorites to win the World Series. And I think that that's the most exciting thing about kind of the era that we are right in the middle of right now, is that it legitimately seems that, like it's a win at all costs type mentality. And from a player's perspective, from a fan's perspective, from anybody's perspective, that's got to be about as exciting as anything that could happen.
We saw how emotional Doc and Darryl were during their ceremonies. Have you allowed yourself to just even imagine what that day is going to be like, especially having your family there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that the tears are all done after the last game. I was a little not embarrassed, but like I felt like I was crying all the time. So I'm gonna try to toughen it up a little bit this go around. Um, I think the biggest thing is I still feel like I'm gonna get up there, and hopefully Howie Rose is doing the emceeing. And then they're just gonna be like, psych, we're just joking with you. This ain't happening, but it's a surreal moment. And I guess I haven't really thought about what it's going to be like yet. But it truly is going to be amazing. I can't wait. And like I said, it's tough to put into words kind of the feeling of getting that call from Steve and Alex, and just what like flooded through, your body after receiving that news.
Next question is from Ed Randall.
David, congratulations. Happy New Year. My goodness.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Talk, if you will, about growing up with the Uptons and with Zimmerman, and how much talent came out of your area, and what memories you have of that.
Yeah, so kind of a unique situation for me. I spent all of my public school up until 8th grade in Virginia Beach. And they happened to be the Virginia Beach school system happened to be a year ahead of Chesapeake, where we moved, in math and Spanish. And I remember my dad talking to the school system. And so I would go to middle school, so 8th grade, for half the day and take half my classes. Then I would get on a bus and go to the high school public school for half the day for Spanish and math. So it's kind of a weird situation, but that afforded me the opportunity to be around Michael Kadire, who went to the high school at the time, was a senior. And I was there the day that he got drafted by the Twins, and they stopped school. They got on the loudspeaker and they said, they congratulated Michael. He'd just been I believe it was the 9th pick maybe of the Twins. And I remember how cool that was. And from that day on, I was an 8th grader. That's what I wanted. And I remember sitting at my desk and hearing that announcement and saying, I want that. I want to be that. And it pushed and motivated me from that day forward to try to accomplish that. But yes, I mean, I think growing up with Michael and Ryan Zimmerman and the Upton brothers, Mark Reynolds, we all played together on a travel team. And I think that we were all friends, but we all wanted to be the alphas on that team. So it pushed us, and it was a friendly competition. There was no jealousy or anything like that, but we all wanted to be the reason that the college coaches and the scouts came to watch the Tidewater Mets. That was our team name. The Tidewater Mets play. We wanted to be the marquee name. We all wanted to be the reason that, the Mets or whoever were coming to scout that team. So I remember going to practice once or twice a week for that team, and the competition and the work ethic was so intense because everybody wanted to be, that guy. And I think that pushed all of us and ultimately, led us to a number of not just Major League Baseball careers, but all-star games and some pretty unique opportunities.
Next question is from Pat Ragazzo.
Hey, David, congratulations.
Thank you.
How would you describe the influence that Darryl Strawberry had in your playing career? He's a guy who you previously mentioned was around a lot during your playing years. So how would you describe his influence?
I mean, I remember as a kid doing the big leg kick. Now I was right-handed, but doing the big leg kick and trying to hit like him. I mean, so it influenced me at a very young age. Then getting a chance to know him and be around him. While I played, the thing that always stuck out with me and Darryl, well, he was a straight shooter. Like he'd come, give you a hug and high five when you had a good game, and vice versa. If you went out and didn't play well, he'd tell you. And it was like constructive criticism, but I remember how, it affected me to the point where I wanted to go out when I knew Darryl was there. I wanted to play well because I wanted him to come high five me, and I didn't want to have that conversation about why I stunk that night. So it was cool having him around because of my Mets fandom, and I tried to emulate his batting stance as a kid, but also because he was a straight shooter with me, and he'd kind of tell me what he saw from an evaluation standpoint of what I did well and what I didn't do so well, and that was always important to me.
Next question is from Jerry Beach.
Hey, David. I was curious. It's been almost 7 years since your finale. I wondered, in retrospect, what it meant to you, be able to play that one more time and kind of put the period at the end of the sentence, even if it wasn't what you probably would have envisioned. The last game being like, what it means to you to be able to go on your own terms in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I'll forever be grateful. I felt like I've said forever grateful quite a bit today, but I'll forever be grateful for the previous ownership for giving me that opportunity. There's not a lot of guys that get a chance to, like you said, put the period at the end of the sentence. And it wasn't the way that I wanted to go out, but it was the only thing that I think was available, to satisfy that hunger, quench that thirst, to be able to say goodbye. I mean, my body wasn't allowing me to do anything near, what I used to. I was hurting. I was incapable of playing. I remember during my rehab assignments, it just takes a while for your mind to catch up with your body, or your heart to catch up with your body, because it's your mind and your heart are saying you could do this, and your body's just saying like, I can't. I remember, my rehab assignments is just hoping that the game would go as fast as possible and that they wouldn't hit me any balls at third base, because I didn't want to bend over funny or dive funny or have to make a weird off-angled throw because something might hurt. And it took a while for that realization to really, for me to understand it. But when it did, the opportunity for one last game to be able to say thank you to the city, thank you to the fan base, thank you to the organization, for the relationship that we've had over these last 15 years was the utmost important to me. And it wasn't a selfish, like, I need this for me thing. Like, it was great because, my daughter got to see me play in a big league game for the first time. I got a chance to, check off some things that a lot of players don't get a chance to do. But I genuinely wanted to say thank you, to everybody for having my back and for taking a 21-year-old kid from Virginia and kind of making him an honorary New Yorker, because that's tough to do. And a lot of times New Yorkers don't accept outsiders, but they accepted me with open arms, and I'll obviously be grateful for that for the rest of my life.
Next question is from Grace McCarran.
Hey, David, congratulations. What did it mean to you to be a career Met, and what do you think it might mean to younger players who are coming up in this city and in this market?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I wish that there was more loyalty. And when I say loyalty, it works both ways. I wish that, like, we genuinely, like, some of the best times, like regular season games that I loved were against Philadelphia. And it was because the proximity of the cities and the fan bases and stuff, but it was also because, you had Jose and I, for years battling Chase and Ryan and Shane and Jimmy and all those, Cole and all those guys over there. So, I think that the game could use more of that. With that being said, it's not just obviously on the players to be loyal. It's on the teams to be loyal. And I think that, selfishly, I'd like to see more rivalries. And I think in order to have rivalries, you need guys that are there for, a number of years. So I'd like to see more of that. I'm glad that I did that. Because again, losing in a Mets uniform for me was devastating, but winning in a Mets uniform for me was sweeter than anything else that I could possibly imagine, because of the trials and tribulations and having gone through everything, and being a Met for life just meant more to me than, kind of a mercenary type player. But again, nothing wrong with that. But I think that I enjoyed those rivalries because of the guys that were there for greater lengths of period, I guess. Greater periods. I don't know.
Mark Healy is next.
Hey, David, congratulations.
Thank you.
Good to see you. I started writing about the Mets when you got drafted in 2001. So, I followed your career the whole time. And I remember when I was interviewing Jim Duquette for the chapter in my book on you, that whole incident where all of a sudden your average had dripped, your powers numbers had dripped in Norfolk. And so Jim had to take a trip to see what's wrong with David. And it turned out that you were working way too much in batting practice to impress the home fans. So, and the other thing is, you and Jose came up at a time when all the fan websites had started to kind of grow, right? 2001, 2002. And so there was a lot of extra pressure on both you and Jose when you made your debuts. Did you feel that? Like, did you feel that pressure when you made your debut, that now all these younger fans, in addition to the people that read the newspapers, were now, expecting David Wright to be a great player?
Well, let me correct one thing, is that if Jim Duquette had a problem with my AAA numbers, he should recheck the numbers, because they're about as good as you could get. But single A is what you're referring to. So yes, you're 100% correct. It was pointed out to me. I got off to a really good start at the time it was high A ball St. Lucie. And I got off to a really good start, and then I started just absolutely being terrible. The numbers were terrible. And our field coordinator, Guy Conti, who I love to death, pulled me aside and ran some numbers. And I guess him and Jim Duquette spoke, and my splits, my numbers at home were horrendous, and my numbers on the road were great. So they sat down with me and they said, hey, let's go through your routine at home and let's go through your routine on the road. And at home, I was getting there early, taking extra batting practice in the heat of the summer in Florida, taking extra ground balls, like multiple rounds of batting practice, and they felt like I was just wearing myself out. Whereas on the road, you don't have that time. You take the team bus, you take a round of batting practice, and you play the game. So we started doing my road routine at home, and the numbers started creeping up there towards the end of the season. So yeah, I mean, I think that it taught me at a young age. Let's see, at the time I was probably 19 or 20, 19 years old maybe. And it taught me at a young age, like time management. So I think that's a brilliant question, because even as a 19-year-old, it taught me the value of having a consistent routine and the value of managing your time properly. And that sometimes less is more. And that stuck with me for the remainder of my career. I'd like to think I was a hard worker, but I learned from that point on that sometimes working smarter is a lot better than working harder. So I think that's an incredible question. And I think a bit of a turning point for me in my minor league career was having that conversation and realizing that sometimes it's not great to go out there and practice just for the sake of practice, that you should be doing it to accomplish something in particular.
Howie Carpin is next.
Hey, David, congratulations.
Thank you.
You did something that Willie Mays never did. You hit a World Series home run. Can you talk about that moment? It was the first World Series game at Citi, and if I'm correct, I think you also hit the first Met home run at Citi Field in 2009. Can you just talk about those moments?
I think I had the first Met hit also. You're forgetting that. So, don't sell me short, Howie. So yeah, so I was jazzed for the home opener at Citi Field. It kind of took the air out of our sails a little bit when the leadoff homer, was it Jody Garrett? Hit the
Yes.
homer, hit the homer off Pelf in the first inning. But to be able to go up there, and it was the homer was a big spot. I think it was the fifth inning, 3-2. It was a slider, it was a 3-run homer to tie the game. And I remember like vividly running around first, and I mean almost taking the hand off of our first base coach and then taking the hand off of our third base. I was so pumped at the moment. To hit the homer, just a really, really neat feeling, to be able to do that. And I think maybe the first inning or second inning, I hit a double down, I think the right field line for the first Mets hit. So that's, a cool little stat that probably me and you are probably two of the only people, maybe Ethan and Jay, that would know that.
Next question is from Scott Engel.
Hey, David, great to see you. Congratulations. And just wanted to know, like, you're known as a guy who's just like very giving with his time to the fans and the media. There's a lot of pressure in New York to live up to being sort of, that type of person that everybody wants to model themselves after. Can you speak to just, how you came up and, became the person that you were, that was just very just giving with the fans and the media and everybody you came into contact with?
Well, I mean, I think, thank you for the compliment. I think a lot of it has to do with my background with my parents, trying to be as gracious, but also as accountable as you could, and I also learned at a young age with the help of Ethan and Shannon Ford and Jay, that accountability is a great quality to have in New York. I saw firsthand plenty of players that would be the first ones there at their locker when they played well, but would be nowhere to be found if they, you know, gave up the losing homer or made the losing error or whatever. So I learned at a relatively young age that good or bad, in particular bad, you need to be accountable. So I never had a problem with standing in front of my locker and speaking the truth. If I stunk that night, I'd be the first one to tell you that I stunk that night. I mean, it's just, it's obvious, you watch the games. So I think that mindset, that simple mindset, stuck with me my entire career. And there's obviously some times that are harder than others to go, admit fault. But I think that it allows not just the media, but the fan base to see the human side that, we're not robots out there. Like, I'm not going to make every play. I'm not going to get a hit every time up, that there's going to be struggles, and how you deal with those struggles, I think, is almost just as important as, you know, one of the biggest, pieces of advice I could give to young players is, learning to deal with failure and how you come out the other side of that. So, I think it was very important, to be held accountable, to be accountable, to be a spokesperson when things weren't going so well. And I credit that to, not just my family, but also, Jay, Ethan, and Shannon for instilling that in me and teaching me that at a young age.
Next question is from Mark Roseman.
Congratulations, David, on well-deserved honors. I remember talking to you on your last game, and you had just finished having a catch with Rack. And you had said that it was a full, circle moment, because the day you signed your first contract at Shea, you had a catch with him. But the other thing you said was that you also had given a ball to your three brothers, and they were running around, and you told them to make sure to get Mike Piazza's autograph. Now reflect on that your number is going up there with the guy's autograph that you craved as that young kid. And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's a cool kind of circle moment. The first part of that question with Rack is Rack threw me my first round of batting practice at Shea Stadium when I was drafted, and the batting practice got significantly worse each year after that, is what I've come to learn. But Rack has survived and outlasted all of, at least me, for sure. He's still going at it and doing great. But yeah, the batting practice went downhill quick after I became a regular player up there in New York. But yeah, it's a really neat moment. And I mentioned it before. I was texting with Al Leiter before this, and it was cool when let's see, I would have been 18. So it would have been 18, 15, 12, 9 when we went to New York. So yeah, I gave, my brothers my ball, because I didn't want to be, like that guy asking autographs. So I was like, make sure you get, Al Leiter, Mike Piazza, you get these guys on a ball for me too. But a cool, surreal moment now, to be able to look up there and not just Mike, a number of players. You look at, Keith and Doc and Darryl. The list goes on and on of guys that I genuinely look up to, and guys that I tried to emulate on the baseball field. And now, my number is going to be next to theirs again. I feel like there's a lot of, undeserving emotions that come with that, but going to be really, really neat. And obviously, by my reaction, going to put a big smile on my face.
Mark Malusis has the next question.
Hey, David, do you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
gotcha. No problem.
There you go. Is there a moment, like whether it be in the minors or when you got to the Mets, that a conversation, an at bat, a game where you realized you belonged and you could play this game at a really high level?
My I made it moment was facing Randy Johnson for the first time, and just like seeing the ball coming from what looked like the sky as opposed to like the hitter's eye, the backdrop. My moment that comes to mind where it's like I can do this and I can do this at a high level would be, when I faced Mariano. Like, the emotions are high for the Subway Series to begin with, and then to deliver a walk-off hit against, one of the best to ever do it, was kind of a moment for me that solidified that, hey, this isn't a fluke. Like, I can do this. So I think that helped with the confidence for sure, when you can have success against, one of, if not the best to ever do it. So I would say, like, I made it moment was, facing Randy Johnson for the first time, but like I belong moment was, having some success early on against Mariano.
And we'll go back to Jen Williams.
David, just a fun question for you. You mentioned wondering if this was all a joke or joking that it was all a joke. And you were also kind of known as a prankster. And not, I don't know if this is public knowledge, and sorry, Jay, if you're catching strays, but there were stories of you like putting eye black on Jay Horowitz's binoculars and playing jokes on people in the organization. And you mentioned not wanting that day to be emotional, but the day that your jersey is retired, should people expect any mischievousness?
Well, that would be the ultimate prank, and it would be deserved if they like pulled the wool, pulled the rug out from under me in the middle of the ceremony. That would be the ultimate, and there'd be, I'd have some harsh words for Jay and Ethan and the rest of the crew behind this. But yeah, it's funny. Like the quick funny story is that so like every once in a while, Jay would use binoculars from the press box, and he'd always come down to the clubhouse a couple innings before the game ended to kind of get everything ready. And Terry Collins, who I love, could be a little fiery in his post game press conferences. Well, we were winning, and I think I was hurt, and we were winning, and we were up by a lot. And so I was like, today would be a good day to do well, this was before the game, but I did the eye black thing, and we're up by a lot. So I'm like, this is going to go over great. He's going to walk into the press conference room. Terry's going to be in a good mood because we won. It's going to be fun. He's going to have the raccoon eyes. It's going to be great. So we give up like the lead late. And it's like this like crazy game that we lose. And like Terry's upset. Everybody's upset. Jay, of course, comes walking down with raccoon eyes. And I was like, I can't let this happen. So like I grabbed Jay before he goes into the press conference room because I know Terry would have a heart attack. So I'm like trying to wash his face off of eye blacking, which is tough to get off. So we're trying to get him cleaned up for the press conference. And that vividly sticks out. I try to pick my spots, but that was one of the ones where going through a tough loss, you got to clean it up before Terry could see, because that wouldn't have been a great look. But I'm going to try to keep the shenanigans to a minimum. Most of my victims are now out of the organization, unfortunately. So I don't think it would mean a lot, if there wasn't a history behind it. But that's a good point. I'll keep my eyes open for an opportunity for sure.
And your final question today, David, comes from someone that probably interviewed more times than anybody else. And that's the one and only Ed Coleman.
Oh, boy.
I have nothing better to do than to sit around and listen to other retired people.
Eddie C., how you doing?
Good, David. How are you? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You mentioned at the end how tough it was for you. And 2015, a great year for the team, but a hard year for you because of everything you had to do to come back and be a part of that. But I know your teammates drew an awful lot of inspiration from you that year. The game coming back in Philadelphia, Cubs sweep, Game 3 of the World Series. What did that mean to you to come back and to be a part of that with your teammates that year?
Yeah. Well, obviously, like I've said, the most fun I've ever had on a baseball field, but I'm not a huge memorabilia guy or autograph collector, but some of the few things that I have in my office, I have my World Series jersey hanging next to my Team USA jersey, and I have a picture over there with my National League Championship ring mounted with a picture of us celebrating in Wrigley after we swept the Cubs. So, I mean, I think that shows just how important that year was, not necessarily for me personally. I got a chance to come back and, experience a lot of the good times on the way up into the playoffs and the postseason. But as an organization and as a city and as a fan base, how much fun that was to be a part of that year. Again, it's just, I can't tell you how long I sat there with my World Series uniform on, just looking at that patch on your shoulder or on your arm and just like going through it. And at that point, again, like the writing was on the wall for me. So I think that maybe I was a little more emotional or a little more, taking time to relish it and appreciate it. But, I remember sitting at my locker and just staring at that patch and smiling and being like, how cool is this that like, we did it. We made it to the World Series and we obviously fell short, but, a really, really cool experience. And to be a small part of that, I take a lot of pride in that, obviously with the decorations in my office, but, yeah, it really, really meant a lot to me and kind of capped off for me, a great run, a career in which I accomplished more than I could ever dream of accomplishing. And to be able to cap that off with a World Series appearance was really, really special.
Thanks. Congrats.
And to share it with you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Thanks, Eddie.
David, thank you very much for your time today.
No problem.
As a reminder, tickets are available, Mets.com/tickets, July 19th. And there aren't going to be any pranks. We'll see you on July 19th, David.
All right. Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, guys.